Now back to Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis.
Hockey Unfiltered with Todd Lewis airs Saturdays and Sundays, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Listen live on the World Wide Web, hockeyprimetime.com, and here on NHL Network Radio, Sirius 207 XM92. Good feedback, as always. Much appreciated. At Hockey Unfiltered, at Todd Lewis Sports, the Twitter handles, Todd at hockeyunfiltered.com. I think they could be busy in the next few minutes. I mentioned a couple times, I had this Hall of Fame question, and I stumbled on to a column from Don Duje on Canada.com earlier this week. And it made me think, wow, that's a really good question. So I wanted to bring it up, and I would love to know what your thought is. I think I know what the results of this yes or no question poll, so to speak, would be, if the polls online are any indication. But this past week, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman celebrated 20 years in the position. 20 years as head of the National Hockey League. So John posed the question, would you put Gary Bettman into the Hockey Hall of Fame? Just a simple yes or no, and then, you can make your argument either way. If you want to weigh in via Twitter, at Todd Lewis Sports, at Hockey Unfiltered, Todd at hockeyunfiltered.com. And we'll squeeze in a couple calls too. But it's a very good question. I don't think there's any doubt that Gary Bettman does get into the Hall of Fame at some point. There's no question in my mind that he will be inducted. Because think of where the league was when he took over and where it is now. League revenues, about $400 million a season. Last year, league revenues, $3 billion a season. That's a substantial increase, isn't it? To go into the billions of dollars over that period of time. There are more teams in the league now. That means more money being generated. You've got more players employed. You have more sponsors as part of the league now than you did 20 years ago. Think about that. 20 years ago. Early 90s. 6 more teams now. And I don't see how you say, nope, can't put him in. I don't think there's any question at some point he gets into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Yeah, I can see that the 3 lockouts would work against you in terms of whether or not you're considering putting the commissioner into the Hockey Hall of Fame. But do you weigh that against all the positives that have gone on? What do you think? I think you have to put him in. Because of, in the builder category, what he's done is grow the game. More teams, more markets, greater exposure. I mean, took an awful lot of heat about television for a while, but you've got a national television contract now with NBC for the next 10 years. I think they sold themselves short. I think they're going to regret that at the end of it, the way some of the television deals have been negotiated now with other sports and other teams. But it's a pretty substantial deal. And even when you think about the game itself, remember after 04, 05, stricter rules enforcement, opened up the game, it's made it faster, more exciting, more skill. I think maybe you have to say, yeah, there's a positive. I think you have to put him in. I don't see how you say no, he doesn't go in, because of all that has been accomplished. Builder category, in terms of growing the game, certainly done that. Billions of dollars of revenue now. He gets hammered by everyone with anything that somebody doesn't like. Face of the league. Not the owners, but he's the face of the league. So he gets pummeled in the media. Fans take pot shots at him all the time. Everybody just, dislike. He's not the warmest guy, not the friendliest guy, but don't you think? 20 years of service and growing the game to its current level. Is Gary Bettman a Hockey Hall of Famer? I think you have to at some point put him in. And if you're making the argument no, okay, go ahead and make it. Via Twitter, via the phones, whatever. If you want to make that argument, go ahead. But, you got guys like Bill Wirtz in the Hall of Fame, guys like Harold Ballard in the Hall of Fame, who, again, made a lot of money, but certainly had their faults as well, too, in terms of running their teams, running their franchises, and not necessarily thinking in the broader interest and the larger interests of the game. But I think if you're thinking strictly for what they've done for the game, growing the game to a new level, making it bigger, generating more money, generating more interest, generating more coverage, there's still the negatives, of course. There's still that easy target that hockey is. There's still that reputation of being the National Fight League. That, if you're watching a hockey game, you're just going to see guys fighting. And I'm not sure anything fixes or cures that except time and knowledge and education to more and more people. If you expose the game to more people, which has happened, then they become more knowledgeable, they can become fans, and they can have a better understanding of what the game is and what it's all about. It's not just about dropping your gloves and fighting all the time. If you got rid of fighting, that would help a bit. But in terms of what he's done for the league and what he's done for the game, I'd make the argument that you put him in the Hall of Fame. All of the growth, more teams. And I know he gets a bad rap in Canada especially, but he's also done a lot to try to help Canadian teams and franchises when they were struggling. Western teams, Ottawa, Lockouts, I give you that. You're right. Whether or not you can make the case and justify that he's personally responsible for all of them, and I don't think you can. You've had 3 lockouts and disruptions, so I don't know that you can make that case. That's bad, but does that disqualify him from becoming a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame one day? I don't think, honestly, I'm really not sure that he cares one way or the other. But I think that he would be deserving if you're considering other candidates at some point. So wouldn't you consider Gary Bettman as a Hockey Hall of Famer one day? Because of the way he's grown league revenues to such levels. I know he's not entirely responsible, but the way it works is it's dictated from the top down. Television coverage. There's been big steps in that direction. There's still a long way to go. And I'm hypercritical about the league and their television at some times. The coverage and the way it works. And a 10-year deal for TV coverage is good. I don't think it's the be-all, end-all, and I don't think it's necessarily as great as some have made it out to be. But it's a big step from where they were. There's still a lot of improvements that need to be made in terms of the reputation of the game. And you can always have greater exposure, better exposure, more sponsors. But you've got more teams now, way more money than you ever had. coming in. And once this lockout situation and a new CBA comes to pass, things will settle down and return to normal again. You can debate about how long it'll take, but it'll be back to normal. And you'll be back to generating billions of dollars in revenue every year for the league. And I think when you look back and try to consider it rationally, that after 20 years of service as commissioner, adding more teams, employing more players, spreading the game out, putting it in more cities, I think you can say that Gary Bettman's probably worthy of induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think it's inevitable. Terry wants to weigh in on that from Ontario. Go ahead, Terry.
Yes, sir. I hope you can hear me. I'm going through some mountains right now.
Good.
Just a quick note. I think if Bettman doesn't get in, then maybe a lot of the owners should get in as well, being that they're basically, I don't want to say pulling his strings, but they're basically telling him what he has to do. Also, I have a quick question for you, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, up in Canada we have the Grey Cup. I wasn't able to see it once I was back in Ontario in my truck. I'm wondering if the same thing's going to happen in the Stanley Cup, being that they would take it off the cable system and let it an antenna system handle it.
Thanks for the call, Terry. I would be very surprised if the Stanley Cup wasn't as readily available or even more available than it has been over the previous years in terms of television coverage. I'd be very surprised at that. But I think that, yes, Commissioner, definitely. 20 years, more money coming in, a bigger game, faster game, better game. Oh, it's still got a lot of questions. There's still a lot of things that need to be adjusted in terms of improving the game from player safety standpoint. But eliminating the hooking, clutching, and grabbing that went on a few years ago was a huge step in the right direction. And yeah, I think you got to make you make a case that Gary Bettman is worthy of being in the Hockey Hall of Fame. After growing the league the way he's done, absolutely, I think that's worthy. 3 lockouts, being head of the league with 3 lockouts. Do you say 3 lockouts and you're out? 3 lockouts and 3 strikes, you're out? I don't think so. He happened to be the head, but he was operating the way the owners wanted him to. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the latest round of CBA stuff that's going on. The disqualification of interest vote that's going to start today and continue with the players for the next 5 days, giving them up until January 2nd to notify the league that they're no longer a collective body. But in the meantime, we're ready to sit down and meet and be part of negotiations. League's filed a lawsuit, unfair labor practice complaint. But we're ready to sit down and negotiate. Are we going to see any compromise? That's what we're waiting for, because we haven't had enough of it at this point. And that's why we don't have a deal. We'll see. There's something else that we're kind of missing out on too. It's a kind of an idea I had in terms of this whole CBA negotiation, and something that we could be missing out on. Something that could be really cool, really good for the league. We'll talk about that in the final segment. If you want to weigh in via Twitter, at Todd Lewis Sports, at Hockey Unfiltered. Todd at hockeyunfiltered.com is the email address. Oh, Kelly Clarkson. Oh, she got engaged. Yeah, she got engaged to her boyfriend. Good for her. Congratulations. One more segment to go on the Sunday program. We're back with much more after the break.
Just to call you friend, I'd give